Joining me today is a very special guest, Prime Minister of Bhutan, Mr. Tshering Tobgay, speaking to us at a time when leadership lessons are being spoken about, probably the most in the world, because what kind of a leader the world needs right now is something that is in focus, given the fact that the world order is going through a bit of a flux. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV.
Thank you, Gaurie. It's always a pleasure to be with you and NDTV.
Sir, you've written a book. Your book is about enlightened leadership. It talks about the transition from monarchy to democracy. But the first question I want to ask you, sir, is about leadership in present times. What kind of a leader does the world need right now, especially given the changed world order that we are now all in?
I have to be very honest. The title Enlightened Leadership is a clickbait. I don't know enough about leadership, let alone enlightened leadership, to talk about this type of leadership and to write about it. So what I have actually done is used an opportunity during the COVID years, when I had some time in my hands, to write about Bhutan and many aspects of Bhutan. But in particular, one aspect about Bhutan that is widely overlooked, and that is the remarkable way in which democracy started in Bhutan. As a matter of fact, the way it was imposed in Bhutan, not by outside forces or not through revolution and bloodshed, but imposed by a beloved monarch on a reluctant people during the peak of his popularity. And this is absolutely unique in the world, to have a democracy start this way, to be imposed by a reigning monarch at the peak of his popularity, in a time of unprecedented peace, stability, and progress. And I wanted to talk about this just briefly to Bhutanese and foreigners alike. Foreigners because they don't know about this aspect of Bhutan. Foreigners know about Bhutan being culturally very unique, environmentally extremely successful. They see us as a carbon negative country, socially very progressive, and they've heard about happiness in general and gross national happiness in particular.
Yes.
But in terms of democracy, very few know about this. And as far as I am concerned, this is one of the biggest legacies of our monarchs. And I've used enlightened leadership in the context of describing the leadership of our monarchs. So you asked me what type of leadership the world needs today. I would say probably enlightened leaders.
Do we have enough enlightened leaders in the world?
I'm sure we do. You don't need to be a formal leader with formal authority to lead a country to be an enlightened leader. You could be a leader of a community, you could be a leader of a company, you could be a leader of your school, you could be a leader in a hospital, indeed you can be a leader in your family, and most importantly, you could be a leader to yourself. And in all these aspects, I think you can be an enlightened leader.
Indeed, sir. One question I want to ask you also about the neighborhood. You mentioned about the fact that the transition in Bhutan from monarchy to democracy happened in peaceful times at the peak of the monarch's popularity. But the neighborhood that we are in right now, you take what's happening around us, whether it's Bangladesh or some other countries, there are violent revolutions that are taking place, all in an effort towards democracy. How do you view that, especially in the context of Bhutan's history being completely opposite of that, and you have the advantage of history, apart from, of course, leadership lessons?
So this is exactly the point I've been trying to make, and especially to our own people. Let's treasure what we have, and especially to the youth of Bhutan. In our region, whether it's India, Bangladesh you just mentioned, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Afghanistan, Some places don't even have democracy yet. But wherever there's democracy, even in India, it was a product of bloodshed, of sacrifice, of revolution. In Bhutan, it was a product of enlightened leaders imposing it on a reluctant people in a time of peace and prosperity, unprecedented stability. And this makes Bhutanese democracy, Bhutan's democracy, absolutely unique.
Absolutely, sir, it does. Which brings me to ask you about the fact that many people around the world feel that there are Western leadership styles and then there are, Asian or, Eastern leadership styles, given the fact that the socio-economic and cultural contexts are very different. How do you view those thoughts, and do you think there is a mid-path possible?
I'm not an expert in leadership. If anything at all,
I'm asking in the context of culture, sir, in the cultural conditions.
I am a student of leadership, but truth be told, I'm a public servant, a servant to my king and my people. But values and culture must influence people. Values and culture, by extension, will influence leadership styles. But remember, when I talk of leadership, I'm not really just talking about leaders of nations. It's about communities. It's about small organizations, businesses, families, and most importantly, self. And in what I have termed enlightened leadership, this is based on Eastern values of timeless wisdom, of courage, compassion, and most importantly, of having to be driven by a sense of selfless service. I borrowed these attributes from the bodhisattvas, enlightened beings who have escaped samsara and have gone to nirvana, but have chosen to return to earth in the cycle, to be reborn in the cycle of suffering, of samsara, for the simple reason that they want their fellow beings, all the other beings, sentient beings, to attain enlightenment and also escape samsara to nirvana. And we have many bodhisattvas, but among them there are a trinity of 3 bodhisattvas that we cherish especially. It's called the Riksungyembo. Now, of the 3 bodhisattvas, the first bodhisattva is the bodhisattva for wisdom, Jambyang. The second bodhisattva is the bodhisattva for courage, Chanadoji. And the third bodhisattva is the bodhisattva that represents compassion, Cherezi.
Okay.
So the enlightened leadership, in my view, are people who exercise the virtues of these 3 bodhisattvas: wisdom, courage, and compassion. And like the bodhisattvas, are driven by selfless service. Wisdom by itself is not enough, because you may know, you may be wise, but you must, if you don't put what you know into action, it's not going to provide any change. So for action, you need courage. But wisdom and courage by themselves also are not enough, because ultimately the purpose of leadership is change. And in change, there is suffering, there are sacrifices, and therefore an enlightened leadership, I believe, must exercise compassion.
Very thought-provoking, sir. Very thought-provoking, which brings me to ask you that when we spoke the last time you were in India, you did mention that you've actually spent more time in India than American universities. I remember you saying that, and a lot of your thought process has been conditioned by the time you've spent in India. Those formative years, they really shaped you. What, according to you, has been your biggest takeaway from your experiences and learnings during your time in India?
Well, I grew up with Indians. From the age of 5, I was surrounded by Indians. This was a boarding school. So morning, noon, and night, we had Indian friends. Our teachers were all Indian. And as such, Indian values would have automatically permeated within me and shaped me. But more precisely, it is in the classroom. We studied Indian history, ancient history in civilization, medieval India, modern India, the fight to independence. So all of this would have shaped me, the person I am, and my worldview. But if you ask me one specific thing that has really had a lasting impression on me, it is the National Cadet Corps, NCC. So I took part in the NCC, and I enjoyed every moment in the NCC. And every year we would look forward to taking part in the Independence Day, 15th August March Past in the Mela ground in town with all the other schools and the NCC cadets of all the other schools. The deep, indelible mark it had left on me is one of nation building. How we must work together to take our nation forward.
And since then, since those years till now, how have you seen the India-Bhutan relationship develop, grow closer? It's always been a very important relationship, but how have you seen its growth in the last couple of decades?
Well, you can call it a relationship, but really, it is a friendship. It is a brotherhood. Our friendship with India has always been strong. And if anything, it is getting stronger. We are neighbors but by geography, but we are friends by choice. And that friendship is driven by our highest leaders. In Bhutan, it is His Majesty the King. It is his guidance that ensures that the friendship between our two great nations is not taken for granted, but is continued to be nurtured.
Right. And what would be your future expectations from this relationship going forward, whether it is in terms of economic partnerships? There's been the railway line that has come up between Kokrajhar and, of course, Jilipu town in Bhutan. There is the economic partnership. And then, of course, there are other cultural and social partnerships. How do you see all of that going forward in times to come?
Well, other neighbors, other relationships might have expectations. In our case, we have assurances. There is a deep trust between our two countries, our two peoples, our two governments. India, we don't need to expect anything because the Indian government, under the stellar leadership of Prime Minister Modi ji, who I refer to as my elder brother, who I refer to as my mentor, who is my mentor, we don't need to expect anything because we receive so many assurances from him and the Indian government. Assurances to help us along our path to development so that we can achieve the high aspirations and hopes of our people. The 13th five-year plan, to a large degree, has got off to a good start. And we are well on the way to implementing that plan, even though it's only been 1 year, largely because of the generosity and support of the government of India, and in particular, Prime Minister Modi.
Right.
The railway line you mentioned, we have a railway line that's going to connect India to Western Bhutan, but more importantly, India has already started, has given us assurances and have also decided on building a railway line that's going to connect to central Bhutan, which goes bang to the Gaurie Mindfulness City. Now, this city is being developed as a special administrative region. This is the royal vision of His Majesty the King. And while this city is going to benefit Bhutan now and the future, it's going to benefit India also, Assam and all of India. This is going to be a gateway for investment to India and South Asia and indeed all of Asia. And the assurances we receive from the highest level from Prime Minister Modi himself and the government of India and the business leaders of India is that the Gaurie Mindfulness City must succeed, and to that, they will leave no stone unturned.
Where do you expect most amount of investments to come in the city? You mentioned that it could also be a huge economic potential for investments and gateway for the entire region. Which sector do you expect most amount of investments to come in?
Technology, energy and technology. So we have huge hydropower potential, and this green renewable energy is in high demand for green energy transition, but also for data centers and AI compute, blockchain technology. And I can see that there's a lot of interest from the world over, and especially from India, to tap into this opportunity. The other area is, of course, finance. Gaurie Mindfulness City will easily and very quickly become a financial hub, and therefore there will be a lot of opportunities.
Indeed. Let me now shift tracks, sir, and also ask you about one thing that we started this conversation with, and in fact, before we started recording this, we talked about tourism, and we also talked about the Gross National Happiness Index. And I think I would do huge injustice to NDTV's viewers if I don't talk to you about the GNH index as well. How important it is, because I know it's constitutionally mandated by the government. The citizens of Bhutan do get those happiness indications. They're supposed to get that. But from a conditioning point of view, how important it is to get those indicators in place, and how does that impact Bhutan in the landscape that it exists around it?
Gross national happiness is legacy of enlightened leadership of our beloved monarchs. Now, many people have said that, oh, happiness, gross national happiness, so you don't care about gross national product, GDP, gross domestic product. And the answer is GDP is important, economic growth is important. But the question is, for what? You must have a reason for economic growth. And that reason must be larger than just mindless economic growth. And that is the happiness and well-being of the people. It must serve that purpose. And so gross national happiness basically puts the happiness and well-being of our people in the front and center of the development agenda by balancing economic growth, material progress, which is a necessity, with social progress, cultural preservation, environmental conservation, and good governance. And yes, we measure gross national happiness. We do a survey. You mentioned the Gross National Happiness Index. We calculate the index from a survey that we conduct, a wide survey, a nationwide survey, a long survey that covers 9 domains that influence gross national happiness: health, education, living standard, environment, governance, time use, psychological well-being, community, and culture. These 9 domains are broken up into 33 indicators, are further divided into 156 odd different measurements. And this survey is conducted every 5 years.
But
this
sir,
gives us a wealth of data. Yes?
But sir, when you talk about, when one hears those ratings that come out every year about, where those the happiest people live on earth, unfortunately, you see only those Scandinavian countries really topping the list. Where is this dichotomy then? Are the ratings not reflecting the way Bhutanese people work and how the government strives towards getting those happiness indicators? Or where's the gap here?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. So it depends on what's being measured and how you measure whatever's being measured. The international ratings purport to measure happiness. We aim to measure gross national happiness, not happiness. Happiness, a subjective question like, all things considered, how happy are you? Or are you happier now than before? There's just one question of the 156 questions. The others are all objective. And in our case, we measure through 9 domains, 33 indicators, 156 measurements. The other international measurements are different. And if the Scandinavian countries and the people there are always rated happiest, good for them. And we should also study them and listen to their stories and see what we can do better. But we are not measuring happiness of the people. We are measuring the gross national happiness of our people.
Okay. Finally, sir, India, of course, has a lot of people from India go to Bhutan every year as tourists. How do you find that right balance between development, which requires more tourists, but also preserving probably one of the most beautiful pieces and areas on earth, which is your land?
I lost you a little bit. Our connection is not stable.
Sir, I was asking you about how do you strike that balance between tourism and also preservation of nature?
Thank you very much. By following the leadership, the enlightened leadership of our king, they have set us on a path of gross national happiness, and within that framework of gross national happiness, a tourism policy that's called high value, low volume. We want to share the benefits of gross national happiness, of a socially progressive society, a sustainable economy, of a vibrant and unique culture, of the law and order and peace that we enjoy in Bhutan, and most importantly, our environment, our pristine environment. We want to share this not just with our people, but with the world, and in particular with our friends and neighbors in India. But we must be very careful how we share what we want to share. Because if we open the floodgates, then we are going to destroy the very things that we want to protect and showcase to the world. And therefore, we have high value and low volume. And so we are looking at a carrying capacity of about 300,000 per year. And right now, we are at about 150,000 per year only. So we have still the opportunity to increase tourism arrivals by 150,000 per year.
You would like to double your tourists. You would like to double your tourists.
When you talk about doubling, it looks like doubling recklessly. Okay, but we are talking about going from 150,000 to 3 lakhs per year. And for that, we'd like to welcome all international guests to see what we are doing in Bhutan, to be a part of our journey. But specifically, I would like to invite Indians, because they are our friends, they are our immediate neighbors. And in India, while it is already getting very warm in most of India, and decidedly hot where you are, Gaurie, in Bhutan, we are enjoying very good weather conditions out here. Similarly, in the summer, when it gets extremely hot and you have to deal with heavy monsoons, here it is much more milder. A little humid, but much, much more milder. People don't want to visit Bhutan in the winter thinking it's brutally cold. That couldn't be further from the truth. So, Gaurie, please visit us. And maybe you can influence your friends and your viewership also to visit this country that I love so much.
That's a great note to end this conversation, sir. Thank you so much for that invitation. And, well, yes, we'll come good on that sooner than later. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you, Gaurie. Thank you.